I think with any failure, it comes down to, it's all about how you respond to it. I think, you need to have a rule of, I'm not going to allow myself to dwell on this for too long. And then it's time to pick yourself back up and find a solution.
Joining me today is probably our most difficult guest to ever track down and talk him into doing this, Joe Belden. Joe is the strength and conditioning coach at Friends University and career educator and strength and conditioning guy. So, Joe, thanks for joining me. Finally.
Well, it's nice to finally make it. Set up a time, that worked for both of us. So,
cool. Well, let's jump right in. Kind of give us the high level view of your career and how you ended up here and doing what you're doing.
Well, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I can go as far back. It's funny, I don't remember half the things that happened last week, but I remember as a sixth grader getting out of school, walking across the crosswalk and thinking, God, I've got football practice tonight. I love football. Someday I can't wait to be playing underneath the lights on Friday night. Then I'm going to play at OU, and then I'm going to play for the Chiefs. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be a coach. And so from a young age, I didn't play at OU or for the Chiefs, by the way, but I did coach. And so from a young age, I started paying attention to everything that all of my coaches, were doing and what every position did, and was just inquisitive and just, was hungry to learn more about, whatever it was. At the time, I set off to be a football coach, and there wasn't much out there in the way of strength and conditioning. But so my first experience was a little bit in high school, but then especially in college. And once again, old enough, there's no internet. You were reading powerlifting magazines or Muscle and Fitness and trying to figure stuff out. So doing a lot of the wrong things over time, but, grew to love the weight room as much or more than I think I loved, coaching other sports. So, started teaching and coaching and coached a variety of sports. Football was my main deal. Left for a while to go to work for an athlete development company where we focused on speed and strength programs for athletes. And it was there that I, had the opportunity to work with Boyd Epley a little bit, who was one of our figureheads and the very first paid strength coach in America, the one that all of us owe our jobs to. And so he's the GOAT, he's the legend, and learned a lot from him. And that's when I guess the learning curve really started to take off. I really started to, I started to really, I guess, get the big picture about things. Picked up my CSCS and USAW certifications and kind of took off from there. Came back. Went back to the high school level to coach weights full time and coach football and some other sports and stayed with it for 17 years and then ended up at Friends University. A mutual friend of ours, Kyle Wallace, who was a strength coach at TCU, reached out and said, "Hey, they're going to hire a strength coach and they want to start a powerlifting program at Friends University," and threw my name in the hat, and here we are.
It's quite a trajectory. I remember the day Kyle brought you up. We were eating at B&D's barbecue downtown. He says, "You're not going to believe it, but I got the guy already." And sure enough. So tell me, I see you as kind of a student of people, and I think that's one of the things that make you successful. So 2 questions. Why do you coach? And then how has your purpose changed over time within coaching?
I think that I've, I don't know whether, I think I always had a lot of respect, for coaches and teachers over time. And I think some people are more driven to help people and like to teach, like to help other people achieve and help make other people better. I think that's my big thing. I'm kind of driven to, and it's actually the first sentence in our mission statement here. Our mission first and foremost is to take our athletes where they can't take themselves. I think that's what drives me. I get a charge out of helping other people succeed and achieve at a higher level. So I think, and it satisfies my competitive juices too. From coaching, but I don't want to be outworked in here, and I don't want I want to make sure that we're giving our athletes the best that we can give them. So how's my purpose changed over time?
I guess I should say that's assuming it has. It may have not.
Well, I don't know if it has. I think that I've kind of, I've always been that way. I think I was more motivated when I was younger about maybe moving up the ladder, but I've always been motivated by learning more and trying to be as knowledgeable as possible. I tell people all the time when I speak at clinics that when I was 23, I couldn't wait until I was the smartest guy in the room. And now that I'm 60, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. You want to surround yourself by people who know more than you do. And I'm real fortunate that I've reached out to some of the most brilliant minds, out there in the strength and conditioning world, and have built some great relationships with some of those people. And they've made me a better coach along the way. And, I think right now it does come down to, we just want to continue to put programming out there and help our athletes, achieve at the highest level, to optimize their performance, to, reduce injuries and just give them a great experience, in their training.
Well, looking at the front end of your career, I thought it was interesting how you said that of all you wanted to be was the smartest guy in the room. You work with a ton of coaches in your role, every coach in athletic department. What do you think coaches should learn early in their career that they don't, that they're resistance to, or even just as an industry, we don't train them well? What do you think they need to learn that they're not?
I think for us that came in the profession, when I came in, it was the work-life balance. You look back to the days, what was it? I don't know, 9mm. I don't know what it was. We were stringing the film up and watching, we were all in there together. And I mean, we met for hours and hours on Saturday, hours and hours on Sunday. I think Huddle and some programs like that have probably saved a lot of marriages just because coaches can do a lot of work at home. But we used to, it was all about the more work you put in, you weren't going to be outworked by people. And it was just like, got to watch more film, got to X and O more. And I think there comes a point where there's a point of diminishing returns. There's a point where it's counterproductive. And that was one of the things that I had to learn. I still haven't learned it, by the way. I'm better at it. But it's one of my downfalls as a coach, is that, your mind never shuts off. And I think you have to realize that, you could be fired tomorrow, but your family's still going to be there. And, you need to keep things in perspective that, you owe a lot. You owe the athletes and the coaches you're working with, you owe them your best, but you also, have to have that work-life balance too. And there comes a point in time where I think you have to shut things off. And I think doing that, it prevents burnout as well. So that's one thing. The other thing, I don't know, everybody talks about building great relationships, but I don't know if we give our young coaches very much guidance and how to do that. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do a presentation to young coaches on how to de-escalate situations, opposed to escalating situations. I was taught early in my career how to escalate things, but times were different too. So and kids have changed, but yet they're still the same. You just got to figure out what makes them tick. I think that's one of the things with coaching, is learning to not only how to read the room, but how to work the room a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think, and we'll probably get into the relationship building here in a little bit and how to de-escalate and, issues, but,
let's jump into that now. Okay. You used escalate and de-escalate. You were taught to escalate. Just to make sure everybody listening is on the same page. Give me an example of escalation.
Escalation. Well, the one thing that I learned early, which was good, was that if there's an issue with an athlete, get them away from their peers. I mean, that nobody wants to be called out in front of their peers, but you can pull them out. But, we were taught to, we kind of have them stand against the wall. And I mean, you might get in their face a little bit more and some things like that, which was absolutely, it may have worked at the time. I don't know if it ever was the best thing. It never was the best thing, but you kind of latch on to what your mentors teach you, but the reality was that really wasn't. No, I kind of have a little bit of a fiery personality, but it's never been the best way to get things accomplished. Ultimately, you have to keep in mind that what you're trying to do is modify behaviors. And so by modifying those behaviors, you can get them, apart from their peers, but hey, are you having a bad day? Sometimes sometimes they'll just say, yeah, I am. Okay. But you can't act that way in here. Okay. Do you understand it? And, I think one of the other things is learning to not take things personal and to put the choice on the athlete. Okay. I understand you may not be having a good day, but you have two choices. You can do what we're asking you to do, or you can go home for the day. It's your choice. But, I used to get all fired up and I took it personal, I think, when people weren't, behaving like they should be behaving. But you've learned over time. Now I've dealt with this situation very calmly. I've put the choice on the athlete. The athlete makes the choice. And then we all go on and I get to go back coaching the other 95% of everybody who's there to get better and who needs my attention. And so I'm not putting all of my effort into that one kid. So I don't know, if that helps anything, but, calling somebody out in front of their peers and there might be a time to do that, safety situations, if there's a fight that breaks out, which we never have here, we just don't really have to deal too much with that. The worst thing that happens here is, if you don't feel like working out today, if you can't do what we ask you to do, or you don't feel like being around people, maybe you need to go home for the day and we'll try next time.
I'll have two pushback questions if I'm a young coach, I think.
Okay.
One is, yeah, Joe, that's easy for you to say. You've been doing this for 40 years. You're well respected. I'm not. I'm on the front end of this. I don't know if they'll respect me if I don't push back pretty hard. What's your response to that person?
Well, first of all, I will say that there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. And, there's a lot of people who, wisdom is knowing, okay, you think, what's going on, but wisdom is, I guess you have a good, healthy dose of perspective and you kind of have the ability to make some sound judgments and know kind of what's going to happen, because it's like the, I don't know, is it the farmer's commercial? We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, so, I think there's human factors that come into play. And so, what I tell our GAs when they walk around, because they're working with people that are essentially the same age as they are. You walk around, you coach them. If they don't accept the coaching, you move on. And, it's pretty simple that, maybe you don't understand what I'm trying. Maybe I'm not doing a very good job coaching you. Let me go get Coach Belden and maybe he can do a better job. And so 9 times out of 10, that fixes the problem. So I think, teaching them how to deal with understanding what their level is and understanding their situation. And yeah, it's going to be tough for them with somebody close to their age that used to be a peer, to have the same impact. So I think just teaching them, they're not going to be able to do things the same way I do things, but we give them strategies to help them move on. We tell them to spend the time with the ones that want to be coached. Yeah. If there's someone who's defiant or someone who's not doing what's supposed to be doing, come let me know and I'll take care of it. So I kind of take that out of their hands.
That makes sense. And I think kids, by and large, if you're meek and soft, I don't think they respond to that. But if you have a backbone to you, I think calmness and treating them like human beings, even apologizing, no matter the age, is responded to well. I think the authenticity piece. I think if you're authentic and know what you're doing, I think kids respond to that.
I agree totally. And I, if you're authentic, if you're consistent, if you're confident, all those things, I think that people do respect it and they do trust it. And, if you're walking by and you're, I tell them, be positive. Don't, when you're coaching people, catch them doing something right, and build the relationships by talking to them and giving them a lot of positive feedback early. Then they're going to respond a little bit better when you go and you try to critique or correct technique. Yeah. You've built those relationships now, and they're positive relationships, and they know that you're in it for them. You're in it to make them better. Once they know that, I think you're going to get a lot better response from them. So I think you're right.
Well, here's my second pushback, and I have heard this from coaches in my conversations with them about just how to deal with difficult kids in practice or a game or whatever. If I just tell them to leave, they get the day off, and that doesn't seem right. What's your response to that?
Well, typically, we tell them to go home and you come back and try it again next time. Ultimately, they don't get to come back and they don't get to just show back up. They've got to have a meeting with the coach and I. And typically, if they know that they've got to meet with the coach, and if the coach supports us, then that's fine. But ultimately, the meeting comes down to, here's the deal. You're either going to clean things up, but we don't know what they've been through. We don't know if they just got a call that a grandparent died, or we don't, and that's kind of the thing. Sometimes I think we jump to conclusions, and I was that person who did that. And I've got a great story to tell about that. If you want to hear,
I would love to hear it.
As I'm coaching football, and we've had a bad season the first year. The next year we went from 1-8 to 8-3, but that 8-3 year, I'm hammering them, and I'm taking no mercy. Well, we had a kid that he was a senior leader, and I'm not going to mention his name, even though I use him as an example all the time of what toughness is and what dedication is, what commitment is. But he comes to practice like 30 minutes late. And I meet him at the gate, and I'm chewing him from the gate over to the football field saying, you're a senior leader. I can't believe you're 30 minutes late. You can't get to practice on time. I'm chewing. Yes, sir. Yes, coach. Yes, coach. After practice, he lines up. We line up the whole team. We run. At the time, we were the Redskins, so it was a Redskin reminder. And so, the kid's running, his belly flops up and down the field for being late after practice, and all the team's clapping and come on, let's go, doing the thing. And then I find out afterwards, he comes up and he says, Coach, I just wanted to tell you why I was late. He made no excuses when he walked in. He said, my ride didn't pick me up, and I ran 5 miles to practice. And turns out that it was one of his teammates that didn't pick him up. And I felt like the biggest heel ever. So instead of saying, where have you been? Is everything okay? You're never late to practice. I met him. There was absolutely no excuses. And I met him, and he never argued with me, never said a word. It was the culture we built, and he took his punishment. And to this day, I feel like the biggest heel. but it's a great story to share. And I learned from that. I learned that we need to take the time and find out what's going on sometimes, I think, and look at the bigger picture before we jump to conclusions, because there's always two sides to things.
And I think that's what makes coaching so hard on some levels. I joke with people so I've been out of coaching 7-8 years now. And one thing I love about being out of it is I don't react emotionally once a week and have to go apologize to somebody. Just, I messed that up, man. I'm sorry. And it's just, there's so much investment and there's so much emotion and so many people. It's just it's hard not to lose it every once in a while. And then to forgive yourself and move on. There's just so many elements to it that are hard, that I don't know if we really even I didn't realize it even as I was doing it till I got after. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of nice. I'm not blowing up on people at all.
Yeah. The people I used to coach, they come back and they say, you're not even the same person. I mean, I've learned to just take a calmer approach to things. I enjoy life a lot better. I enjoy coaching a lot better. I experience less burnout. And, once you get on that high and you let things, your temperament gets escalated. Sometimes it's kind of hard to bring yourself back down too.
Yeah.
And then it's exhausting. So
what tips do you have to help manage that for coaches?
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask that question because I haven't, I think practicing, one thing that's helped me a lot is practicing some stoicism, just trying to learn to let things go. And I'm still not very good at it. But understanding that there are a lot of things outside of our control and that, there's always two sides to every story. It's worth it sometimes to, just like in that situation, to take the time to say, is everything good? And then if it's not good, then you can proceed to do your thing, or if it is good, if it's fine, they just overslept or whatever. But, I think that number one, understanding there's a human factor, I think, involved with things, and that we have to take some time to take care of ourselves mentally, physically. And once again, understanding that what we do is important, but we can't bring our best, to our athletes and to our teams if we don't take care of ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. So, don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that's one of the things that we've got to at one point learn to take care of ourselves if we want to be at our best for the people we care about.
Yeah, and there's both in personal life, family life, and coaching your team. There's I heard you say this earlier, there's a lot of diminishing return there where you spend so much time, you get bogged down in the detail that it hurts you, or you're so invested and tired that you overreact to everything and you're not getting the best out of your team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's no question. Sometimes we're able to mask it and hold it together here, and then unfortunately we go home and the people we care about get it at home. So yeah, it's about keeping things in perspective. And one of the things that I've read a lot about recently is just the difference of perception versus perspective. And your perception of things, has everything to do with your senses, what you see, what you hear, those types of things. And a lot of times there's an emotional component to that. But, taking a step back and looking at things through a broader perspective, I think really helps. And sometimes the things that we think are so important aren't near as important as we think they are, and, life goes on. We're going to be okay, and a lot of it is learning, I think, just how to understand that, life's full of obstacles. It's just another bump in the path.
Share a personal story, which you can read about in Dustin and I's book. But grew up in a small school, had a lot of success playing sports. I went out my freshman year of college and just utterly failed. And there's a lot more to the story, but ended up quitting. Coached high school C team football and baseball for a year. And I was shocked when I was coaching C team baseball. When kids had a bad game, the only people that knew were me, him, and his mom and dad. That's it. Until they started throwing stuff and cursing and screaming, then everybody knows. But we feel like there's a spotlight on us, and that's just not reality. That's just not how it works. And our perception is our perspective is, I'm getting your words mixed up, but it goes with the perspective and perception.
Yeah. And, that spotlight effect, you and I have talked about that. People aren't they're not paying near as much attention to us as we think
they're
they
focused on themselves. It's like
they're focused on themselves, right? Yeah.
So shifting a little bit, you have a model for coaching, especially in the weight room, that I like. You call it the 4D approach. Talk us through that.
Okay. So the 4D approach, basically it's not only just how we develop athletes mentally and physically, but it's, how external surroundings and internal feelings kind of affect their performance, if that makes sense. So you've got the physical element, which is like the strength, the speed, the skill acquisition, technique work, all that kind of thing, all the things that involve the physical. And this is it's real similar to our 3D coaching model. Okay, but with a little twist. So then we've got the mental part of it. So anything that has to do with your brain. Okay, so I think now kids want to understand the how, the what, the why, especially. They want to know the why behind what they're doing things, and it's about building the confidence and the mental toughness and all those things. The external part is something that we talk about a lot, but I don't know if anybody's doing much about it to address it. Our athletes have a lot of external stress, and if you look at our athletes, I mean, they have stress to do well in school. I mean, they could have gotten a fight with their parents on the phone. Girlfriend, boyfriend might have broke up with them. I mean, they've got peer pressure. They've got all these different things. And now we've added social media, which has made a big impact. All these things affect them, and they're all external. They're all external factors. And so, I think once again, trying to teach them to let go of the things that are outside of your control, and the whole perspective versus perception thing. And then, we talk about being in control of your attitude and your effort. You're always in control of your attitude, your effort, and your choices. And somehow we've got to let some of the other stuff go. One of the big things that we've started doing that's helped reset the nervous system is RPR. And it not only helps with their physical performance, but it also, I think, kind of helps just reset the nervous system and everything. So we tell them, bring your best to minimize the rest. That's it. Okay. All right. Bring your best to minimize the rest. So then we got the internal part of it. And this is something you and I have talked quite a bit about. We've read a lot of the same books, or you probably read them and I've listened to them or something like that. So I don't have much time to read. I'm always listening while I'm programming or whatever. But it's the internal part. Do I feel valued? Am I part of something bigger? Does the coach even know I'm here? Does he know my name? It's this, do I have positive relationships with my teammates? Those types of things. And, those are some of the things that we talk about a lot around here, being intentional with your coaching, and some of the things that we try to do every day. And I tell my grad assistants and interns, I want you to talk to every athlete every day. I don't care if it's a fist bump. I don't care if it's a, rah, rah. Hey, I love that. Hey, that's what a squat looks like. I love the ways your knees track your toes. That's a way to engage your lats, but being very intentional with the coaching, but making sure that they know that we see them. Mm-hmm. And that we're coaching all of them. Now that takes time. You got a weight room full of 60 or 70 people, but I try to go around, and first thing I try to do when we get started, when they're getting through warm-up sets, is I take that time and go around and pat them on the shoulder, fist bump them. Hey, how'd you do on that test that you had that midterm, or just something. Hey, coach remembered that. He's actually paying attention to me. So I think those types of things are really important. And I think that we overlook that. We've talked about the psychological safety aspect of somebody feeling safe, feeling like, we're in a safe place here, that failure is just kind of, sometimes it's a part of the path to greatness. You're going to have some failures along the way, and learning, them understanding that if they leave it all on the line, they bring their best, they leave it all on the line, they will always be a part of the tribe. Mm-hmm. Because one thing I think people don't want to be, they don't want to be cast out from the tribe. When we have kids that don't get to come to weights because they're not going to study hall, or because they don't have the grades, and so they've got to go do some other things to get things caught up in the classroom before they can come in and train, it's devastating to them. I mean, it is one of the best motivators ever. Nobody wants to be cast from the tribe. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be cast from the group.
And there's a cultural assumption, I feel like, with a lot, that they are going to be, when they mess up, they don't perform, all that kind of stuff. In my role as athletic director here, I've had so many conversations with kids of, if I do this, I'm going to lose my scholarship. I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, that doesn't sound right. I talked to the coach, like, what are they talking about? So there's this general fear of that. Now, I will say, I think there's the opposite too. That fear motivator works with some, but there's this general fear of getting cast out from your community that is powerful, that coaches almost need to look at, of how do I develop an understanding of, no, if you follow these rules and try your best, you're going to be part of it, even if you go out and suck. But it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And, I think that I think as we kind of look at this model, it's just another way of looking at things. I think once again, it's stepping back and taking this broader viewpoint of sometimes when you're in so close to it, I guess the saying is you can't see the forest for the trees, but stepping back. And there's a lot of things that people talk about now, but I don't see people doing much about it. It's kind of like we talk about, there's a lot of kids that are helicoptered now, and a lot of kids that, we talk about toughness in our athletes, but, hard is what hard for some people is, my parents took away the controllers to my PlayStation, and so, one of the things I've been wrestling with is, we used to, I don't know, we've got to find a way to make everybody just a little bit more tougher. I don't know, tougher, but we need to let them know that hard, they may not know what hard is. We need to push that level a little bit. I ran into, actually at the pool yesterday, saw a guy who I coached, and he was, part of our big turnaround team. And then he coached for me. And then now he's an administrator. And, we were talking about strength and conditioning, and he said, I had a weights coach one time. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And he said, I had only done 225 on squat for 5. And I remember him getting mad at me because I only hit it for a set of 13. He said he kept pushing and pushing, get another one. And I think at that time, the thing I thought we needed was toughness. I thought that we needed to learn to push through. And so I was probably a little over the top then, but anyway, it's kind of funny when they come back and, tell stories. And sometimes those stories are a little embellished by the time and I'm like, oh, but that one was right. I remember him doing that. So anyway, yeah. So, you smile and you go on. And I'm like, if that's the worst memory they have of me, then great.
Well, let me transition us to one more topic before we wrap up with our rapid fire round. But I want to talk about Generation Z. So kids born late 90s, early 2000s and on. The stereotype is they've changed. Curious your take, and then I'll have some follow-up questions.
Well, I think that probably our parents said the same thing about us. I think that change, the one thing that's constant is change. And I think there's always going to be change. I think that, I guess the perception or the perspective on things there is that, we had a generation of parents whose parents worked all the time. And now, so then when they had kids, they were like, my parents were absent. So now I'm going to give them everything they want. And I'm going to, we're going to helicopter them, and I don't want them to ever have to fight their own battles and those types of things. Well, yeah, maybe that's true, but not with everybody. We have a lot of athletes. I was just talking to 3 of them in the weight room today. Well, they obviously are not that way. They love to be pushed, and their parents were pretty hard on them. There wasn't a lot of excuses, and so they were pushed. They definitely were not helicoptered. I think that this generation can spot a fraud really quick, and so I think being authentic, like we talked about, and being real, I think that they can see through the smoke screen. You have to be honest. You got to be upfront with them. If you tell them the why, one of the things that in my generation, if we were just taught that if the coach told you to do something, you just did it, right or wrong. It didn't matter. You didn't question. And, I remember my son deciding he wasn't going to play football anymore. And, he just said, Dad, I like football, but I don't like the way you do. And I don't like it enough to put up with what I'm having to put up with. And so he had a bad experience. And from him, I was proud of him that he was able to just make that decision on his own that, this isn't worth it to me, to do that. But, I think so. Is there constant change going on? Yeah, there is. But but there's strengths to this generation too, I think. And I think that, Obviously, I think somewhere in the middle is probably the best thing. But you find ways to adapt and work with them. I mean, the reality is that if athletes believe that you love them and you care about them and you're in it for them and you're doing what's best for them, they'll work hard for you. That's not changed.
Why do you?
And I don't think that ever will change.
Why do you think it's something we've talked on this show off and on, of Generation Z's ability to spot a fraud? And it's counterintuitive, because I totally agree, but it's counterintuitive, because we also talk about how there's in this online world and don't take on conflict well and start communicating primarily through Instagram and different stuff. Face-to-face is hard. Making that jump to they can spot a fraud so well is just interesting. So why do you think that is?
I don't get it. I mean, I just don't, because on social media, it's all about putting on a facade. It's all about, hey, I'm gonna put this perception out there that I want people to think of. When they, this is what I want people to think of me. I think social media is all about validation and all those types of things. And I think so I don't get it. I don't understand it at all, but I do know that we have to somehow get them to understand that what other people think of them really doesn't matter as much as they think it does, and that they have to learn to focus on the things that are within their control. You start focusing on the things that are outside your control. I did it forever and ever, and it makes you miserable because there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's funny because I at least talk to so judgmental and online, and it's fake and all that kind of stuff. But I know every time somebody gives me a like on a post I make, I feel pretty good. There's a nice hit there. So I can get why they get there. I wonder if it's they know the fakeness behind it more, understand it more than us on the social media piece, which in turn helps them identify it in others. I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know. I think, I think about coming up, and I think, we wanted to be motivated. I think that, if the coach told me that I sucked, I'm like, I'm going to prove to him that I don't suck, and I worked harder. If he said, "Great job, Belden, great job," he thinks I'm doing a great job, I'm going to keep doing it, But I just, I think that I think right now they really, you have to prove to them. I mean, we have to understand that we're in the trust and communication business. And I think that if we can clearly communicate our expectations, they'll respond to it. I think that if we're authentic and genuine and we're consistent, we're going to gain their trust. Yeah. I really believe it. If they believe that we're in it for them, they're going to work hard for us. I think those are the things we have to keep in mind, that if we can communicate and we can build trust. And I don't think, and I guess going back to, my point was, respect and trust aren't automatically given. You have to earn it. And I think once you earn it, though, once again, you're going to get, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot of, just like any other profession, there's a lot of not so good coaches out there, as well. So, but I think those are things that we all have to keep in mind. And then I think it comes down to, we were talking about this, like I said, we read through a lot of the same books, but what's your system? If you have systems in place and you're consistent with those systems, how are we going to build this culture? How are we going to take care of faults and fixes and teach progressions? Yep. And how are we going to do those things? All those things build credibility. And so I think maybe we put too much focus on, or they've changed and so we just can't coach them like we used to. Well, the things I think I just talked about are things that I believe that haven't changed and will never change. If we focus on those things, you're going to be fine with whoever the kid is. And
I always push people too on what's so bad about not being able to, kids saying, "No, you're not going to dog cuss and scream at me and treat me poorly." I think that's probably okay. We probably accepted that.
That's okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, any final thoughts before I wrap us up?
I think one of the things that I've focused on a lot that I've added to, some of my clinic talks is that I think as a strength coach, if you're okay with mediocrity, you need to go find a mediocre profession. I really believe that you impact the lives and the performance of too many athletes to be okay with just being okay. And so, I think the people who are doing it because they think it's an easy gig, if you do it right, it's not an easy gig. I mean, you put a lot into it, and the people who are passionate about it, you put in a lot of hours, and your entire existence kind of centers around making people better. And, which kind of goes to the things that you kind of would like coaches to know about where we're coming from as well as strength coaches, that, our entire existence once again comes down to helping your athletes perform at a high level. Nobody wants them to perform at a more optimal level than we do, except for maybe that coach. And so, trust us, we're doing the best we can. We're researching, and there's so many factors that come into play. How many athletes are in the weight room, the, equipment that's available, the skill level of the athlete, what they respond well to. I think, sometimes learning to read the room a little bit. We rely so much on technology, but how about just reading the room? And so, I think that those are some things that you kind of would like people to know about our world, is that, sometimes we lose sleep at night over trying to find a way to make people better. And I think most people get that, when they see your work, but sometimes you talk to people and you're going, they don't get it. So,
well, we're going to finish with the rapid fire round. So I got 4 or 5 questions for you. Only rule is you can't take longer than 30 seconds to answer any of them.
Yeah, boy.
And I'll only cut you off, though, if you're being boring. So, first question.
Okay.
What is one book that has greatly influenced your life?
I don't know if there is one book, and they all mesh together, Rob. I've read so many, and a lot of them are like they mesh together. So I don't know if I can give one book that's greatly influenced. I've had so many.
I thought you'd go with some Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday, actually, Mark Manson is pretty inspiring. I mean, I listen to him and I'm like, I just believe if you can get past all the F-bombs, it's, I like his stuff a lot. But yeah, I've read a lot of really good books, and a lot of them just kind of, there's a lot of overlap.
Next question. How has a failure set you up for later success?
Well, I've had a lot of them. But I think with any failure, it comes down to, it's all about how you respond to it. I think, you need to have a rule of, I'm not going to allow myself to dwell on this for too long. And then it's time to pick yourself back up and find a solution and move on. And so, I think if I've been doing this for 4 decades, so it's, there's been quite a few failures along the way, but with every one of them, you learn from it. And I think the big thing is, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. You just can't keep repeating the same mistakes.
What is your favorite podcast?
This one.
Other than this one.
Other than this one, I really like.
You send me them all the time.
I know. Well, I like Huberman's stuff a lot, but the that's a
cliffhanger. If anybody wants to know Joe's favorite podcast, I'll put his email in the show notes, and they can reach out to you.
Well, you can do that. It's the people who advertise simply faster all the time.
It'll come to you as you answer this next question, I bet.
It will. So, it'll come to you.
How do you define success in your work?
We talk about, we want to, and this is our new thing, we want to be the best at getting better.
I like that.
I think the big thing is that everybody has a different starting point. And, as long as we see athletes continuing to improve, we're reducing injury, we're doing all those things. But really, I don't know. I think the best answer is ask me in 10 years. And we see how all these athletes that we've had an opportunity to touch their lives, how do they turn out and what do they think, down the line? Do they still do they appreciate, how we coached them, how we treated them, the experience they had here at Friends University?
So last one, in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
I think probably diving a little deeper into the stoic thing, just understanding that, we're all none of us are getting out of here alive. And so we better do the best we can every day. And we better tie up our loose ends every day. And we better, just understand if this was your last day, how would you want to go out? And then understanding that, the obstacle is the way. You're going to run into obstacles, and are you going to go over it, around it, through it? I mean, what are you going to do? But it's a part of life. And then not dwelling on the things that we can't control, which we've said over and over again. I think that's a big one.
Well, as always with our conversations, I feel like I learned a lot from you. And, I consider you a valued friend. So thanks for taking the time today.
All right, you bet. See you, Rob. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.